You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account. From Apple to VIX and everything in between, if it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report. If you're listening to this show, chances are you're pretty serious about options trading. So let me put something on your radar. Public. It's the most cost-effective way to trade options. That's because Public is the only platform that gives you rebates on your options trades. They also have some of the industry's lowest index options fees. Whether you're placing single leg or complex multi-leg trades, every dollar counts. Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description. And now, get ready to scan the tape for the most explosive options activity on the street. It's time for the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, welcome to your Hot Options Report for Thursday, September 11th. Let's get down to business and make sure you stay through to the end of this one today, listeners. Got some surprises in store on the single name list, but before we get there, to the land of vol we go, listeners. Was it a hot day in VIX land? The answer was no. Started off robust, over 500,000 contracts pretty much right out of the gate, and then kind of withered and died by the second half of the session, putting up a total of 665 on the tape. That's below the ADV of 876 out there. And the hot option in VIX land today, it was a weird one. It was the February 60s. They went up 31,549 times for an average price of 60 cents. That was kind of wild to us. So we thought we'd ask our audience, are you down for a little Feb 60s for 60 cents? Yes, no, or would you rather sell them, but as perhaps in a more risk mitigated fashion as part of a vertical? And 50% of our audience right now say you want to buy those bad boys. 25% say sold to you. 25% say they want to sell them, but as part of a vertical or a spread. Get in there at options that will be running throughout the rest of the day if you want to make your voice heard on Twitter/X as we keep on rolling out to SPY. Listeners, was it a hot day in SPY? The answer was a resounding yes. 8.86 million. That's a little over a million more than the ADV of 7.84 million out there. So a hot day out there in SPY. And what was the hot option on a hot day in SPY? A little over 500,000, 502,000 of the 658 calls, average price of about 28 cents. Unfortunately, closing shy of that strike today, 657.63 in SPY land. Also, VIX, by the way, going out a little bit shy of 14 3/4, right around 1471 in the cash. All right, out to the SPX we go, listeners. Was it a hot day in the SPX? The answer was yes. So VIX kind of the lone laggard on the docket today. 4.31 million contracts on the tape in the SPX against an ADV just a tick shy of 4 million, so exceeding expectations there as well. The hot option on a hot day in the SPX, listeners, it was 235,000 of these 6590s. Average price of those about $2.20, and the cash going out a wee bit shy of that, 65.87 and about a half, listeners. As we keep on rolling out to small caps, a hot day in small caps as well. 1.9 million contracts on the tape against an ADV of about 1.4, so fully 500,000 more contracts than we expected out there today in IWM. And what was the hot option on a hot day in small caps? 138,000 of the 227 puts. Average price for those, $2.05. By the way, these are the Octobers, so going out a full month on these. So very interesting stuff out here. Got February in VIX, you got October in small caps, and you got 0 day and pretty much everything else, including the Qs. Now, was it a hot day in the Qs? You'd be forgiven for expecting the answer to be yes, listeners. And unfortunately, the answer is no. Right around 3.7 million contracts going up against an ADV of about 4.2 million. So fully 500,000 shy of the ADV out there. So kind of interesting. The Qs closing just a tick north of 584, about 584.08 today, listeners. And it was the 583 puts with an average price of 62 cents that were dominating the tape in the Qs today. Over 284,000 of these bad boys changing hands in the Qs as we keep on rolling out to the single names. I said it was a banger, and I'm not lying, listeners. Let's kick it off. A surprise name sneaking into the number 10 spot. By the way, cost you over 500,000, 534,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That gets us to our old pal, Warner Brothers Discovery. Haven't seen them in the top 10 in quite a while, but making in the number 10 spot today, popping hard, up nearly 30%, closing a little bit north of $16, right around 16.17. Of course, this one has been in takeover hell for quite a while. Seems like we had some progress on that deal with Skydance. Larry Ellison, he's got some more cash in his back pocket these days, courtesy of Oracle, so he can afford maybe to put through his bid for Warner Brothers. Seems like they had some progress on that front, leading to the big pop in the stock today. And what was the hot option out there in Warner Brothers? Again, bucking with the trend, not a weekly, but a December contract, going all the way out to the D's 15s, listeners. Can't remember the last time we've talked about a December contract on the hot options report. It's been a while, listeners. D's 15s. 109,000 of those bad boys changing hands out there today. Average price of 63 cents. Obviously, that was much earlier in the session, listeners, because these went out over $1 in the money. So 63 cents, quite a deal. I think you would buy those for 63 cents right now. But interesting stuff out here in good old WBD today, listeners. Moving on to number 9, another name we haven't talked about in a while. It's our old pal Micron, roaring back onto the list with a vengeance. 618,000 contracts on the tape for Micron, popping 10.57 or about 7.5%, closing 150.57. So a good day for Micron. And what was the hot option on a hot day in Micron today, listeners? It was 29,000 of the 160 calls. Again, expiring tomorrow. Average price for these, 78 cents, listeners. 160s. Again, expiring tomorrow. So if you bought these for 78 cents, you need this stock to get its butt in gear by the close tomorrow. They got as high as 156 and about a quarter, so that might explain that rather lofty price, but still, that is absolutely wild. Hopefully you sold these, listeners. Hopefully against something else so you can't get run over if it spikes. But yeah, sold to you 78 cents for the 160s. We'll see how that turns out on the hot options report tomorrow as we keep on rolling to number 8, my old stomping grounds outside of the SPX. Yeah, it was Intel. Closing today 24.61, down slightly on the day, but managing to put up 655,000 contracts on the tape out there for Intel. Looks like there was a massive 71,000 block of flex going up out there. That was really, let's say, adding to the total for Intel. So if we get past that, the actual hot option out there today in Intel for the stuff you folks can trade out there was the September 30s expiring on the 26th. So all sorts of interesting stuff going up 26,000 times for an average price of about 7 cents. Again, stock closing shy of $25. Can it get to the 30 handle by September 26th? Well, if you think that's the case, 7 cents is your huckleberry for those calls as we keep on rolling to number 7, listeners. AMD lighting up the tape out there today, closing nearly $4 to the downside, about 2.5%. 155.67 is where it's closed, putting up nearly 800,000 contracts today. 795 on the tape for AMD, and the hot option out there in AMD today going to the dark side as well. 73,000 of the 155 puts going up for an average price of $1.06. So you know what I'm going to say, you got to close a tick shy of the 154 strike tomorrow for these bad boys to break even. Can we get there? I guess we'll find out. But if you bought those, you're hoping for a little more downside tomorrow in AMD. As we keep on rolling out to China, once again, it's our old pal Baba for number 6, 807,000 contracts on the tape. Baba popping exactly 8% to close at 155.44 today, listeners. So a hot day out there in Alibaba. What was the hot option on a hot day? It was the 155 calls, changing hands 34,000 times out there today, listeners. Average price of $1.73. So they were not giving these away. Obviously, right now they have a intrinsic value of 44 cents. You need the stock to run a little bit if you want these bad boys to pay off. The stock did get as high as 156.85 today, so that could explain that somewhat lofty price. But if you bought those at that average price, you need this stock to keep running out here tomorrow, listeners. As we keep on rolling to number 5, it's the Fruit Company. This name has been taken on the chin for the last few sessions ever since they announced their new iPhones. Seemed like the street not exactly loving them, but popping them a little bit today, giving some back today, rallying about 1.5%, closing about exactly 230 for Apple, putting up 1.17 million contracts out there. What was the hot option on a hot day in Apple? 133,000 of the 230 calls. These went up for an average price of about 94 cents. The stock went out about exactly 230. So you know what I'm going to say, listeners? You need this stock to run about $1 tomorrow and close there in order for you to pretty much break even on these calls. We'll keep an eye on Apple. Can it make it to the finish line tomorrow? We will find out as we keep on rolling to our explosive returner yesterday. This was Oracle. I haven't talked about Oracle in forever. You know it's the tail end of earnings season when Oracle comes on the radar, and came on in a big way yesterday with an explosive move, rallying about 80-odd handles. Giving a lot of that back today, giving them back about $20.50 or 6.25%, closing a little bit shy of 308, putting up 1.31 million contracts. Now, what's interesting here, we were talking yesterday on the Hot Options Report, and again, that's why you got to listen every day, listeners. We were talking yesterday on the Hot Options Report about the wild paper going up in Oracle. In particular, yesterday, the hot option yesterday was 67,000 of the par puts, the 300 puts, average price of about $1.13. And we said on the show yesterday, that's kind of wild because the stock closed close to 330. If someone paid $1.12 for those, they think this rally is wildly overdone, in which case the stock's got to hurriedly get back below the par strike by tomorrow's close. Well, it did a good job of getting close to that today. And the hot option in Oracle again today, again the par puts, going up 80,000 times today for an average price of $1.44. And it was opening paper again today, so interesting stuff out here. We said yesterday, if you think you can't get there by tomorrow, then that's pretty much a free $1.12 if you don't mind selling those and having the risk of the stock put to you. So interesting stuff. If you sold them, you were maybe sweating a little bit today. We'll see. Can Oracle maintain above the par strike tomorrow, or will it plunge back below, in which case that $1.12 is going to look like a bargain? We'll find out tomorrow as we keep on rolling to number 3. Yes, I said number 3. What is going on in the world? A wild day when Nvidia is kicked all the way down to number 3. What could take the top spot? Guess we'll find out. It's Nvidia number 3, 177.17, off about 15 cents today. It's not a huge net mover for them today. 2.18 million contracts changing hands, so about an average number for Nvidia. Usually that's good enough for the top spot, not today. The hot option out there today, though, 300,000. Again, this is index volume, listeners. 300,000 of the 180s. Average price of about 70 cents, so you know the deal. Stock's got to run to 180.70 by tomorrow for these bad boys to break even. Can we get there? Got up to about 180.25 today, so that could explain, again, that somewhat lofty price. But wild stuff for the Nvidia. As we keep on rolling to number 2, our old pal, still hanging out in the number 2 spot. It's Tesla. Getting back 21 handles today, about 6%, closing 368.81. So all the recent negative headlines about how they can't sell cars and everything else doesn't seem to matter. More buyers and sellers out there in Tesla today, listeners, rallying hard, putting up nearly 3.5 million contracts. That's a very active day for Tesla out there today, listeners. The hot option out there is the 360 calls, 167,000 of them. Average price of $390. Now, if you know your options math, stock closed nearly $369. So I think most of you would buy those for $390 right now in a heartbeat. That would be a good do, as the kids say. So interesting stuff out there. Obviously, these went up earlier in the session. The stock got as low as 347.60 today. So wild stuff in Tesla. And speaking of wild stuff, listeners, this number one, it deserves almost its own show here. Ever since we launched this show and this name have gone hand in hand, because that's right about the time that it broke into the top 10 for the first time. What are we talking about? It's our old pal Open, and my goodness, what a run it was on today. Just when you thought maybe it had topped out, the meme run had exhausted itself in Open. Remember, we were talking not that long ago, a week or two ago, people overriding the 2.5 calls for 25 cents and being really happy to do it. And then it rallied to 3 and 3.5 and 4, and then 4.5 and then 5, and then it seemed to peter out. Then it got up to 6. Then it flirted with 7. We talked about the 7 calls not that long ago. Then it got below it. It seemed like those 7 calls were a distant memory. And then today, news of some executive shakeup there. Former founder coming back as chairman, new CEO, all kinds of wild stuff. And the stock just off to the races, rallying nearly 80%, $4.66 to the upside today. Again, the stock itself was $2.50 not that long ago, and about a month before that it was about 50 cents. So it ran $4.66 just today, closing, get this, $10.52. It gained another dollar since we talked about it earlier today on the option block. So absolutely wild stuff, blowing through the 7 handle, the 8 handle, the 9 handle, and yes, the 10 handle. My goodness. So those 7s we were talking about just a session or two ago, those are looking a heck of a lot better out there today. In fact, yesterday we were talking about the 6 calls. The stock closed 586. It was the 6 calls for 28 cents. And we were wondering, can it get back up there? Or is it going to continue this regression to the downside? Well, it got back there and then some. If you bought the 6s for 28 cents yesterday, you were looking pretty good. You got a bit of a smile on your face today, shall we say, listeners. Again, 3.82 million contracts going up in Open. Just absolutely wild numbers. Those are SPX numbers, listeners. That's wild. That's NASDAQ numbers. This is wild. And it's Open. A name that wasn't even really on anyone's radar. We talked about it a few times over the last couple of years on our Options Oddity show, but it was never in the top 10, let alone number 1. Wild. Absolutely wild stuff. And what was the wild print on an absolutely wild day in Open? 225,000 of the 10 calls. That's what we're up to now, the 10 calls. I'll give you a couple of seconds to think really quickly. What do you think the 10 calls, the average price was for those bad boys today? 3, 2, 1. If you said 66 cents, you are the winner chicken dinner out there. Remember, we got as high as 1070 today, so wild stuff. Nearly 250,000 of the 10 calls. And at this pace, 66 cents could look cheap tomorrow if it continues running. We will definitely keep an eye on this one, listeners, as we roll into tomorrow for our final hot options report of the week. Stay tuned for that, as well as, of course, volatility views. And for all of our pro members over there at theoptionsinsider.com/pro, we'll also have some awesome, unusual activity for you coming up tomorrow on Options Oddities. Stay tuned for that. And then we'll see you back here tomorrow to wrap up the week with your final hot options report for the week. Oh, yeah. And stay safe out there, everybody.
Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.